The 42nd verse of the Tao Te Ching, quote, "The Tao gave birth to one. One gave birth to two. Two gave birth to three. All three begat the 10,000 things. The 10,000 things carry yin and embrace yang. They achieve harmony by combining these forces." People suffer at the thought of being without parents, without food, or without worth. Yet this is the very way that kings and lords once described themselves. For one gains by losing, and loses by gaining. What others taught, I teach. The violent do not die a natural death. This is my fundamental teaching." Unquote. Living by melting into harmony. The beginning of this verse reiterates what Lao Tzu has been saying throughout the previous 41 sections of the Tao Te Ching. That is, the Tao is the hidden force that brings all of the creatures and substances that comprise the 10,000 things into being, as well as being the intangible that we think of as oneness or wholeness. All carry and embrace the opposites of yin and yang, or the feminine and masculine principles. This verse reinforces the idea that blending these seemingly opposing forces is the way to achieve harmony. Lao Tzu reminds you of the things that you probably think cause suffering and suggests that being orphaned or going hungry or feeling worthless are high on the list. But then he says that achieving harmony in terms of the Tao involves gaining by losing. Does he mean that if you lose your home, your mom and dad, your belongings, or your sense of self-esteem, you'll gain all that you need? What? How is this possible? Your infinite self that originated in and is animated by the Tao needs nothing to sustain itself. Parents, possessions, and self-worth are only necessary to the existence of your mortal self. Lao Tzu wants you to recognize this difference within the oneness that you are. He teaches that you gain awareness of your Tao nature through the loss of emphasis on the physical conditions of your life. In your oneness, you're likely to lose the Tao sensibility in proportion to the emphasis you place on worldly desires. At the same time, Lao Tzu emphasizes that death of the mortal self is influenced by the way you live. You will die as you live is the fundamental teaching for the mortal self. This is the balancing act that you're required to truly melt into harmony with the Tao. The last several lines of this verse insistently drew my attention when I was researching, writing, and meditating on this 42nd passage. I studied many translations of it, and I spent countless hours communing with Lao Tzu, gazing at his likeness in my writing space. I discovered that this particular verse was always interpreted with the same kind of dramatic emphasis. All said something similar to the following. "I take this to be the father of teachings," said one. Another said, "Know this to be the foundation of my teachings." Another said, "This will be the essence of my teaching." Another said, "Whoever says, this is my beloved teacher." And the one that I use here, in this translation of the Tao, quote, "This is my fundamental teaching," unquote. My conclusion here is that when you're violent in any way, including in your thoughts, or your behavior, or pronouncements and allegiances, then you're choosing to die in the same way. Of course you'll draw your own conclusions about the significance of this particularly dramatic instruction of the Tao Te Ching. The insistence with which this teaching presented itself to me leads me to believe that Lao Tzu wants me to emphasize that its opposite is also true. That is, a person who embraces the Tao and eschews violence and hatred will live and die naturally, which is in harmony with the perfection of the Tao. So I invite you to change the way you perceive what keeps you from harmonizing with your source. The birthing agent of all is also your ultimate place of return when you leave your body in that moment that we call death. You must be willing to give up your attachment to all forms of violence in your life if you want to melt into harmony. Here are Lao Tzu's suggestions written through me for embracing this fundamental teaching of the Tao Te Ching. 1. Remember that violence violates the harmony of life and death. Make a decision to live harmoniously with the Tao by removing all associations that you have with violence. Stop supporting entertainment that promotes any type of it, for instance. Monitor your vocabulary to remind yourself to remove words that direct hatred or killing toward any living creature. Explore avenues for resolving disputes peacefully, and get involved with organizations that discourage violence. Remember that the one fundamental principle of the Tao Te Ching is that if you take up savagery in any way, then you're signing up for a savage end on this planet. And this includes your mental activity as well as behavior. So seek kind and forgiving thoughts in place of revenge and hatred. Change the way you look at life to seeing a picture that's free of violence and melts into harmony as you live and die. And secondly, examine your attachment with the idea that you gain by losing and lose by gaining. Your attachments to objects, status, your culture, and even other people prevent you from being free in the great way of the Tao. The more stuff that accumulates, the more you have to watch it, insure it, worry about it, protect it, polish it, distribute it, and identify with it. In other words, you lose harmony while seeking to gain. Practice giving your possessions away and loosening your need for who and what you have. Imagine strings attached to everyone and everything that you feel you own, then symbolically cut those strings and be an observer rather than an owner. This is how you melt into harmony with the Tao. The poet Hafiz advises, quote, "Start seeing everything as God, but keep it a secret," unquote. Do the Tao now. Think of one person who may have wronged you at some time in your life, someone who abandoned or mistreated you, someone who stole from you or cheated you, someone who abused you perhaps, or spread ugly rumors about you. Spend one day, just one day, putting all thoughts of revenge aside, and instead feel forgiveness and love for that individual. Notice the difference in your body when you don't have violent thoughts. This is the essential teaching of the Tao.